it's cool. You take a piece of steel and you throw it on a machine, you hit some buttons, and it comes out with this cool widget that you made or somebody designed. And so that's kind of the reason why. As we look through ideas that we have, it's kind of the one that we thought, this is one that I would like to actually look into and see what it's about. Any machinists in here? Are you currently a machinist?
Well, I'm not a machinist, I'm a machine engineer.
Anybody deal with machine shops in here? Tell me about your experience, Rob, with machine shops.
Well, first of all, I can't have one. My machine shop is not my garage anymore because I don't have a garage. So my machine shop used to be my father's barn. So I don't have either of those two things. So now I have to steal time if I want to make anything. If you're a maker, right? So just the broad category of people that fabricate stuff at all, you have to. The machines are difficult to maintain. They don't require. I mean, they require some amount of training. But you can't. You can't just like have one to access. They're hard. You have to steal time on it. It's a pain.
Layton, what about you? What's your?
As far as using them, I mean, tooling costs are bothersome. Time, access, and time availability is tough. As far as ones that I deal with, I would say the quality varies greatly, and their timeliness often sucks.
That's kind of one of the things that I looked at because in my job, we were a manufacturing company, so we weren't actually a machine shop. We were a manufacturing company. We used machines to build what we made. But a lot of times we would go out and we would have to farm out projects or farm out overflow work, and typically we wanted to keep someone that was nearby so we could have some good interaction. And that experience is terrible for most of the time. Have any of you guys read E-Myth? So E-Myth, it's this entrepreneur book. He talks about technicians, right? He talks about a lot of small companies. These technicians, they've got a skill as a machinist or an accountant or a hairstylist, and so they say, wow, I'm going to go out and make all this money because I've got this great skill. And so they take that skill and they just create themselves a job, and they do a terrible job at actually building a business around that skill. And that's what I've seen with my experience with a lot of machine shops, is you have these very skilled individuals that get a couple machines in their garage or in their dad's barn or whatever it is, and they start just making parts. Your interaction with them is terrible. They do a terrible job at looking at how they deal with customers. They're terrible at delivering on time. They're terrible at lead times. And so that's kind of been my experience. So some of the assumptions we have.
Yeah, and just one point going back to that too is, in part of Troy's experience, he would try to farm out some jobs to somebody's shops, and we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. And they would just say, no, we're not interested. Instead of, like any other business owner would be like, hold on, let me see, how long is that opportunity there? What do I need to get? They'd just be like, oh, they wouldn't even look into it at all. It'd be like, no, we're not interested. Throwing away potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars just without even thinking about it.
Yeah, so some of the assumptions we have are kind of on this experience. One, is there's more shops in Utah, or we could use more quality shops in Utah. Just the experience, professionalism, how you interact with them. I literally, 2 years ago, we called up a guy and asked him for a quote. He asked us to send us drawings in an envelope with a stamp.
You're like,
that is just ridiculous, you know what I mean? And so we see, like Rick said, I had a buddy, and they're kind of my analog business, that has a machine shop, and they're good people. They do quality work. I was trying to give them work, and they didn't have the capability for it. I probably could have sent them, they could have got in with my company and probably $100,000 a year or more in business, had they said, well, what's this look like? Okay, with maybe a $15,000 investment. So this is kind of some of the scenes. People want short lead times. Typically, you'll be hard pressed to get a 4-week lead time, unless the market's down, then people have capacity. But if things are going, it's hard to get a lead time out of these guys. And then just a lot of machine shops are like people that have been machining for 20 years. They're not the most tech savvy individuals that you dealing with, and they don't use technology to one, drive business to their company, to interact with customers and provide that service. And so these are some of the this is some machine shop that.
These are marketing materials.
This is
These
a
are
marketing
promotional
photos off
materials.
the Machine Shop's website. And this is what I've seen when I've dealt with smaller machine shops, you know. Like, if my desk looked like that, I probably wouldn't market it on my website, you know. If I had drinks sitting out on the cabinets in my machine shop, that wouldn't be my promotion.
That would be your promotional materials, you're sure?
So that's kind of what we're looking at. So this analog, our analog it's my buddy's shop. His dad started in 1960 something, and now him and his three brothers run it. You know, back in the 90s, they were doing pretty well. You know, they had about a dozen employees, and they have almost done nothing to actually adapt to the changes in the market. And now it's just him and his three brothers running it. I don't even ask him about the business every time, because every time I do, he like just is a big downer and makes me not ever want to ever think about starting a machine shop. He's like, oh yeah, it's so hard, there's so much competition, blah, blah, blah. You know, and this is the guy that we try to send work to. You know, their website, literally on the website, it says, you want to see pictures? We don't need pictures of our work. You know, everybody, that's how they promote it. It's just weird stuff. So in the research, I started looking at what are some cool machine shops. There's some pretty good shops here in Utah. But I found this awesome shop out in Minneapolis or something called Proto Labs. So they claim a 1 to 3 day turnaround on their thing. So I was like, wow, that's really cool. Their website is really cool. I sent them an email and said, hey, I'd like to talk to somebody. I got the response email and said, we received this. We'll get back to you shortly. And within a couple hours, I got an email back saying, hey, yeah, if you want to send me your phone number, we can call you. So guy calls me up and I talk. So just that interaction right there.
It was like way better than you've
Yeah.
ever had with any machine shop ever.
Yeah, exactly. And so just that interaction was like, oh yeah, that's a pretty cool company. And so I talked to him, and it was really cool. So they delivered on this 3 day turnaround, supposedly 99% of the time. All they do is millwork. They have no lathes. They have 300 lathes in their or mills in their shop, and so all they're doing is just let's get parts turned around quickly.
From
And it
all
was
over
interesting.
the country or for just
Yeah, all over the country. So it was really interesting. Go ahead.
Sorry, I apologize for not
No,
knowing
you're good.
about this, but is this what kind of customers do they have, and like what are you actually making?
Depends. So a lot of aerospace companies, you're making basically any part you see that's shaped out of metal
Yeah.
is probably made on a machine. You know.
So is it sort of like really?
It's not extruded, it's mill.
Yeah, there could be. So it depends on the industry. You know, here in Utah, aerospace, oil and gas, you know, Boeing, they've got some stuff here. So those are some of the big companies you're dealing with making parts. But then also just local companies, you know, they have little prototypes that are making or parts on a machine break. There's all kinds of different markets that you look at.
Or people that are manufacturing gun parts right now.
Oh yeah, gun parts right now. If you're making gun parts, you're in the money right now because nobody can find guns. That one guy I was talking to was like, oh yeah, if you were making gun parts, you could have enough machinery to stay busy. So. But this company, so as I looked at it a little more, come to find out last year they went public, and so that's just weird. A machine shop going public. According to NASDAQ.com, they were the number 2 public company last year as far as just percentage growth in their stock price. $126 million in revenue, which is really impressive for a machine shop and what I've dealt with. So it's a really cool company, and one of the things that they've done is this whole interaction with the customer. They've built this proprietary software so that you send them a 3D computer file of a 3D model, and their software actually goes in and generates all the tool paths by itself. And that's where a lot of the work on a machine shop is. It's all the front end getting it ready. Once you get it ready to go and stick it in the machine, it's nothing. But so they took this technology that nobody's using and they built it so that when you call them up, they can get you a quote and they can get it on the machine really quickly, so it's really cool.
Just, I mean, Stephen, this is someday you'll be fabbing parts, right? And the issue for you is, you know, you want to talk to him. You don't want to talk to the angry guy who can't use email, and you won't ever. That's the basic business, right? Basic business is you're in the future, and you don't want to work with a machine shop that doesn't know how to use email or doesn't know how to return a call.
If I can expand on that, there's a similar business in 3D printing, and 3D printing is different. That you can send in whatever you want, and they can print it, right? But machining is different because you've got to have clearances for the machine to reach different parts of the part, and that's the challenge. Is you've got all your different customers sending things in, and in their own languages, their own drawing styles, and that's why machine shops have such long lead times and they overrate because they've got to interpret that into their own language for their own machines and their own processes. And I don't know how they did it, but they found a way to make an automated system to interpret that information into something usable.
Which is really cool. If you program the CNC machine, it's cool. It's really cool. So 3D printing, that's one thing that I think has a lot of it's got a lot of press right now for sure, but a lot of potential. They also do direct metal laser sintering, so you can make parts out of metal. It takes like metal powder and welds it together. And the cool thing about that is the thing about machining is you're limited on what you can actually build. People with that kind of stuff, and I think that would be in my machine shop we would start to build on that because I think additive machining is something that's really cool in the future. Because then it's not what can I design that I can actually stick in a machine, but I can design whatever the hell I want, and I'll
just layered it.
It'll just print out and then it'll work. So that's really cool. Sure. So some of the things we did for experimentation. So one of the things I did at my previous job, we bought machines. We had some CNC machines. So I dealt with the salesman of a guy that deals for one of the largest machine tool companies here in Utah, or here in the West. Had a relationship, so I called him up and said, "Hey, you want to go to lunch?" And I just talked to him about kind of Utah's machining industry, and he had a lot of insight that I was never in a machine shop, so I wasn't really deep into it. So he gave a lot of cool insight on how does it work. There's a lot of networking involved in just getting work. If you can get in with some of the big shops, you can get some of their overflow work. Talked about ISO certifications and important for working with some of the big shops because then they trust you because you paid money to get a certification. And so he gave me a lot of really cool insight. It was cool. We talk about networking. I may have missed an opportunity because I haven't been in contact with him for about 8 months. And he was like, "No way you want to do this, He's like, "About 6 months ago, we had these machines come in on trade, and I could have got them for next to nothing." And I was like, "Oh man, maybe I should start a machine shop." It's such a good deal. He's like, "If I would have known you were interested, we could have done something."
Keep taking them to lunch now.
Yeah.
He's your every 3
I
months.
will.
He's your next. He's your best friend now.
So that was really cool. Just you talk about networking. It's something I haven't even thought about. He's like, "Oh, that's too bad."
Yeah, and so the thing that's kind of interesting, the point that he's really touching on, is that we realize that it's a very relationship-driven industry right now. And Troy had some relationships there and tried to leverage those relationships to try to get more information about it. And one of our assumptions was that these machine shops aren't using technology in a very efficient manner, and the way that we tried to get more information about that was using technology. So we understood the inherent limitations to that. But a few of the things that we did to do some more experimentation is we sent out some surveys to shop owners locally. So we got a little bit of a picture nationally with that other company that IPO'd out in Ohio. But we wanted to survey some of the machine shops around here, kind of see what they're...
Was that shop in Ohio or was it Minnesota?
Minnesota.
Okay. If it's in Ohio, I was going to go check it out.
Yeah. And so we sent out about 51 surveys. We had to do a lot of digging to actually find email addresses, find contact with these machine shops. So that in and of itself is kind of an experiment where we're trying to just email these, and that seems like a pretty fundamental thing in business now, a way to generate email to get online.
It's gonna go somewhere.
I've heard it's super important. This
Yeah, this whole internet craze, I guess, is going pretty big.
I had to go through page and page and page to find these 51 people in spam.
Yeah, And we got 4 responses. We were trying to just find out a little bit about their capabilities and technologies used. I got 4 responses. We didn't really get a ton from that, although, like we said, maybe not getting a lot of response from it. Having a hard time actually finding people to email was an indicator of the market and what was going on there. We also surveyed some machine shop users, and most of these were other relationships that Troy had built through past experience. So he had better responses that way. So we got a better feel for what people were looking for. One of the indicators that we saw from these surveys was that some of the job shops that are doing the best right now are ones that are in niche markets that have a specialty. And so that was a takeaway that we got from that. We also went to Google, did some AdWord searching to kind of see how many people were searching for Utah machine shops, because that's a pretty specific term. We know it's so relationship driven, but if people aren't in that relationship, if they're not in that machine shop fold yet, how are they getting that information? So we figured they would probably, like anyone else, would be going out to Google doing searches on that. Got about 480 local searches. That seems like a pretty decent number of people out there that are looking into finding more information about machine shops in Utah. So that we kind of use that as an indicator of potential market. We also went out and we tried to see how many machine shops were out there for sale. If there were machine shops that maybe weren't doing well, or we were trying to kind of go off of that economic principle. If companies are leaving an industry or sector, maybe that's an indicator that the industry isn't doing too well. And so we kind of used that. We searched around, and we really only found 2 shops in Utah for sale. So maybe that's an indicator. Maybe it's the type of business that it's not really a sellable business. You can't really sell the clients the same way. The 2 businesses that we did see for sale were basically selling for the price of the machinery. So we're still not sure whether or not that is a true indicator, but that was a test that we ran. Other web searches, like Troy said, when he was trying to find just email addresses, it was extremely difficult to do that. If you just do a Google search for Utah machine shops, on the first page you do not find anyone that's claimed that real estate. You're basically finding directory listings that are just going off, yellow pages, and it puts someone in there. So there's not even one machine shop that has an organic spot on the front page of Google, which is pretty interesting, pretty telling. So what did we learn? Network is very key in this industry, although we think that there are some opportunities to break through that, and people that aren't in the network be able to leverage that to get some business. Talked a little bit about how it's constantly revolving. Like right now, the job shops that are doing the guns, doing gun parts, they're having huge businesses. So those businesses that are able to pivot, that are able to ride the waves. We talked, about waves last week. This really applies to machining, because there are certain industries that get hot. And if you have the ability to make your shop a niche shop to be able to ride those waves, you can make some potentially huge profits there. ISO certification, I don't know if you want to talk about that. Okay, so we talked about the niche shops. Is there a
I
question?
just want to tell you, a company I know just went through its ISO certification, and they said it cost them about $10,000.
Yeah, my previous company had it. It's not that bad, and really, from my understanding, ISO's actually never failed a company after they got certified. They're in the business to
It's definitely worth it.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, another takeaway that we took is that the shops that are treating this like a business, the ones that actually have those basic business skills are the ones that are succeeding. Also, it's a very capital intensive. Buying the machinery, doing the certification, doing those types of things, being able to get the business, there is a lot of capital involved in it. Also, depending on the size of the shop that you want to have and the way that you want to scale. So we did come up with some pivot ideas. Our idea was, it would be cool to do a machine shop. And as we were going through and we were running our various experiments, we came up with maybe a couple different ideas that could serve as further experiments. They could be almost quasi mini businesses to further flesh out our ideas to see if it could be something that would work. We kind of thought of maybe a lending tree model. Since there's such a small web presence here in Utah, if you could somehow build relationships with the machine shops that are out there and use that as a way,
real estate.
yeah, and take some real estate there and get these shops saying, hey, what if I we're able to send you some bids. You know, people will go on, they fill out our form, and we can shop bids out to you. We'll do the marketing for you. Could be a really easy way to get a lot of information in a way to basically dashboard what the industry looks like here. We get a lot of people come to us feeding us information on what type of jobs they're looking for, and then we farm that out to shops. Then we can actually use that and say, hey, we're seeing a lot of demand here, and we're not able to fill that demand right now. And so that might be a good indicator of potentially the type of niche shop that we would want to get into. One thing with this big company out in Minnesota, they had a software that they had some proprietary software that they had built out. I think that aided in their lead times where they were able to, I don't know how to explain it better than that, but they were able to, the software was able to work with the machines that they had to essentially cut down on some of those pain points that they talked about in terms of measuring the spaces of your bits coming through and doing all of your machining. But they could build some software, so we thought maybe pursuing that there might be some opportunities to maybe follow their lead in that. Also looking into maybe outsourcing jobs overseas. We haven't really checked into that, but we thought that might be another point to see what type of manufacturing capabilities are overseas as well. So one piece of, we learned a lot through this. One thing that we found is really important is the passion associated with it. And I think ultimately that's why I think Troy will succeed in something like this, is because he had that fire behind him where he was going out, he was making the contacts, and the contacts that he was making, they're like, oh, they could see it and they were wanting to partner with them, and he's doing that to follow up. So that's something that I learned from Troy that I saw kind of firsthand, and I think we can all apply it in anything that we do, is when you have a passion for something, that shows. You can't fake the passion for a business idea. If you're just out to make money, it's not going to go over as well as when you're making those connections with people and they feel your passion, they see it, and they want to be a part of that. So we think we have some good pivot ideas. What do you guys think?
So do you want me to suggest what to do other than just starting a machine shop, which just seems to be the coolest thing? I mean,
I'll take anything. One of the things, one of our other pivots was a manufacturing company. I love manufacturing. And we talk about maintaining the network. I got my old boss's boss. He's an engineer. He's retiring from work in the next 2 years, but he's not retiring from work. So he's going to leave the companies, but he wants to still do something. He's got just crazy connections throughout the world in oil and gas. Could I partner up with him and say, hey, why don't you come up with a cool idea? We can build it, and then you just go out and sap all your contacts, and we'll get something going. So that's
A friend of mine does some manufacturing, has a manufacturing business, and the niche he found was he was into auto racing, and so that was his network. And so what he does now is he's done it for about 10 years, is rapid prototyping. He doesn't own any equipment, any machinery, but he finds the highest quality places to do any kind of crazy non-ferrous castings or machine work or whatever it might be. And he focuses on building those relationships and working with these racer people who need the right high quality places to build their stuff, and that's his niche, and he makes a good living off of it. And he doesn't have to have any of that big, capital to own the actual business. He just plays the middleman, but it's a huge value that he
this is
has.
the lending tree model in a particularly interesting niche that you might care about, whatever it happens.
Yeah, and it was funny because I had never thought about it. In one of our surveys, we asked, how do you generate business? And one the other, they filled in and they said they have an outside sales consultant that goes out and drums up business for them. I don't even know if they work for the company. They could just be someone that does machine sales and just feeds businesses, so something similar.
Yeah. What if instead of just making and buying the equipment, there's people that are selling equipment for the cost, and then you're already ISO certified, and then you can go take those guys that are 55 plus to lunch once a month, and you work a deal out with them where you take it over and you're an apprenticeship, and you say, hey, you keep running it, let's keep your name, let's just do some real marketing to it, and then all of a sudden there's a whole. I actually talked to Ken a couple weeks ago. I said, hey, I really want to take these old businesses and revitalizing. It's like, oh, there's a whole industry called Restart out there. Restarts. I was like, oh, I didn't know. It sounds cool. Well, that's what a lot of these shops need. They just need to kick in the pants and do some basic stuff and get out there and market and things good.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Just say, hey, you've got a gap here. I want to do this. A lot of them, you know, a lot of them are older, and I don't know what their pass-off strategy is or what their exit strategy is. Maybe you can just come in and say, hey, you've already built a business and clientele. You're probably about ready to get out of it.
Why don't you let me run it, and
Yeah.
we'll just keep kicking cash off and putting it in the bank account.
Yeah. So good.
So what about the technology itself, right? I mean, like 3D printing, right? I know, like, I heard that they actually printed guns, right? You talked about that part, right? Is it that would the technology itself have any threats from that, or are we talking completely different?
With 3D printing,
Yeah.
I think that's up still because right now 3D printing doesn't, you know, you're not going to stick something 3D printed made out of plastic down a hole in a well when you're drilling for oil. I think right now it's limited by, you know, there's a limitation on some of the strength and some of the stuff they can build. Even some of the guns, they've actually built these guns and they've fired a couple rounds and made out of like plastic and stuff. The plastic ones just fall apart after like 2 shots. So I think that's why I think direct metal laser sintering sounds like a really cool thing. You know, if you can build it, and you're limited on materials, what you can build it out of, and that's a big thing when you're designing anything. So yeah, I think it's definitely something to watch.
If you really love machines and machining, you could make a machine shop that makes machines, and they sell for a lot. $1 million, $2 million, $10 million, depending on how big they are, and you can make a heck of a business out of that. Just like it.
I think the cool thing there would be building right-sized machines. You know, everybody wants to sell you a machine, and it's like 3 times the size of what you need. So, you know, what can you do to build a machine that does the work you want? Most machines are just generic. You know, could you build something that's built the right-sized machine? Yeah, that's really cool.
So do this. This is awesome. Thank you guys. So, photo tweet sites. This is like going to be Instagram and Twitter. Who are you? That's you guys.